Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. I have another book review for you. Today's book review is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. And this is probably going to be the most opinionated book review I have given thus far, which is probably a result of my disappointment more than anything else. I have read some books that were bad ones and I just didn't care for. And unfortunately, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins is probably at the top of the list. When I cracked this cover, I was looking forward to enjoying another Hunger Games story and immersing myself into the world that she had created. And it's quite a while ago that I read those books when they had come out. And now I'm going to be honest, I'm really questioning myself, like from 16 years ago that read those books. And I feel like I need to reread them, that maybe they weren't as good as I maybe thought they were. And I don't know. The character development is really what fell flat for me, and the writing. I don't know. Not a fan. And so if you're looking for a book for maybe your teen to read, I'm not going to recommend The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Just to give a little bit more, explanation or context to my dislike, there's so much I noted in this book that I just didn't care for, and I feel like I devoted so much time to already reading it that I'm probably not going to go as in depth as I could for this review. And I'm just going to sort of give you a bird's eye view and highlight some particular things in the book that I didn't care for. If you are unfamiliar with the premise of this book, the focus is on Coriolanus Snow and his backstory that kind of created the character that he became in the Hunger Games. And the premise of the book is that he's like finishing his academy years and he's preparing to try and go to college or university. And his family is poor and they need money essentially and some sort of way to pay for their tuition. And winning this competition where he and 23 of his other classmates are now mentors to the incoming tributes for the Hunger Games. It's the 10th Hunger Game. And so a full ride scholarship is basically on the line for the capital winner if your tribute happens to win the game. The story is meant, I'm assuming, to give Snow's background and what led him to be the person that he was in the Hunger Games trilogy. But to me, it's like completely awkward even from the beginning. I had a hard time getting into it. A lot of times I can read a book in a day to 3 days. This book, I kid you not, took me like 2 weeks. It was so hard to read. It was just so boring. It was so slow. She embellishes and elaborates in areas that don't need it. And then, like, the one time in the book where it was like, okay, now it's kind of getting interesting, like, she just rushes right through it. And I don't understand where that was going in the book. So the book opens up with Coriolanus's poverty and his preparation for the reaping in the districts, which will lead him to figuring out which tribute he has been assigned. He lives with his grandmother and his cousin. His parents are no longer living. His cousin is Tigress, and if you know anything about the books or you've at least seen the movies, you know that she reappears. There's like no connection between like Tigress in this book and like what appears later, unless I just forgot something that I read, which is certainly possible. I am known to have errors, so that's possible. They live in an opulent apartment, but they don't have much furniture or creature comforts because of their poverty. They're trying to, every little bit that's earned, Tigress earns a little bit of money, and so a lot of that goes to supporting them. And Tigress is close in age. She is older than Coriolanus, but she's like primarily his caretaker. The grandmother is just, she's old, and so it's not much going on there. But even like page 2 in the novel, like literally page 2, I'm opening, trying to figure out where we are in the world, acquainting myself. And he's sitting there considering, like, does she give herself like parts of herself, or, you can sort of insinuate where this is going, in order for food. And so he presents that. It appears other times in the conversation. She even hints at the fact that she's done disgraceful or dishonorable things in order for them to survive. And when that happens, when she presents that, he seems a little caught off guard, which seems weird because, like, even from the opening of the book, like, you were considering that as a possibility. As the novel progresses throughout the 10th Hunger Games, their meals do get better, but there's no link to the cause. So whether it's Tigris doing disgraceful things, or it's extra food giving to him from a friendship with another student, or it's his role as a mentor, it's completely left open. We have no idea why they seem to have better food. I mean, there's a few instances where it's obvious that the food is coming from this friendship that he develops with another boy who's originally from a district living in the capital, who's essentially like kind of usurping his role and his position in society. So that's a whole nother like aspect. Anyhow, Coriolanus ends up mentoring the female tribute from District 12, which is meant to be like a slight from the dean, whose last name is Highbottom. Lucy Gray is the female tribute from District 12. She's eccentric. She's got a talent for music. And then, like, oddly, there's like this budding romance between the two of them, which, like, that just seems wrong, right? Like, he's from this world of power. She's been selected as tribute as some, like, you know, I don't know, snarky event going on with her and the district and between the mayor's daughter. So that results in her being chosen as a tribute. And then somehow, like, there's just so many power dynamics that are just awkward in this. And I don't know. It's just weird. And the whole relationship just goes back and forth. Like, one moment in the novel, he's feeling alive and invigorated by her. And then the next, he's like, hates how she makes him feel, and he then has like extreme jealousy, and then he has this desire to kill her. And that's not even like a consistent progression throughout the story. Like, it's cyclical, like it goes back and forth and jumps around at various points. And then even at the end of the novel, you're kind of left with this idea, like, did he kill her? We don't know. It's just like a possibility, maybe likely, but we don't know. Like, why? I don't know why. The novel actually, like, so the book is like 500 pages. Okay. I can't tell you how many times I was reading this book and I was like, oh my gosh, there's still 300 more pages. Oh my goodness, I still have 200 more pages to go. It literally wasn't until like the last 100 pages, like, something a little bit interesting happens. And then, like I said before, she like rushes through the events, especially like the last 20 pages with Lucy being potentially dead. Like, why not make that clear? And then there's this like maniacal Dr. Gall in the story, and so she like is influencing Coriolanus's thoughts in some way, and so she's like the game maker of the Hunger Games for the 10th one. So she's pretty crazy. She does like some weird stuff in the book, and there's some things that are like kind of gruesome, like some girl like becomes covered in snake skins and scales. I don't know if all this is in the movie. I honestly read this book before I ever even saw a trailer for the movie. Because I knew the movie had come out recently. I was kind of like off in another world and not knowing that all these other things were taking place. So, one of the things with Dr. Gall, though, is that she's trying to sort of prove to Coriolanus that people are inherently evil. But her way of solving that is that the government is what keeps people in check. So certainly a worldview that some people hold to, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But she's trying to kind of push Coriolanus like in this regard, and this is just where the writing to me is just back and forth. Like, there's no like progression. Like, there's so many times when Coriolanus is like repulsed by Dr. Gall, but then like at the end of the book, he's essentially learning from her, and like, I don't know, like, it just doesn't progress to me as it should. Um, Also, like, so many things in this book felt so forced. Like, it wasn't genuine, like a story that needed to be told. Like, maybe someone brought her a deal and was like, hey, can you write another book for the Hunger Games? Like, maybe tell us about Snow. I think a better story would have been like how Pan Am became Pan Am and how did like District 13 get destroyed. Like, give us that backstory. I don't know that Dr. Snow's or Coriolanus Snow's story needed to be told. I mean, like, I'm all for like a villain story. I love Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. Great book. Love the character. It's so fun to read and to explore that, especially with students. I have a lot of fun reading that book with them. But this was just so flat. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was a terrible writing. The character just doesn't align. There's no natural progression. Even like at one point, he talks about like just his negative feelings for his father, and then like literally the last 20 pages, like, it's my father's spirit that saved my life. Like, again, what? Like, what is this? Like, going back and forth. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I was just in a bad spot. I don't know. But I really disliked this book. One of the worst books that I've read in quite a while. One thing I will give the book some credit on, and I don't even know if I would read the whole book for this with your student child, but there is that focus on like the idea that humankind will naturally reveal its innate evil, especially if like self-preservation is on the line. And so the Bible does tell us that like no one is good, right? Romans 3:10-18 says, as it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth. There is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone their own way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. Their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. Whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. So every facet of this truth from Scripture is present in this novel. So if you're looking for an opportunity to explore this with your reader, then maybe this is worth reading, or at least sections of it. And while I can recognize like there is truth, like in this one aspect of the novel's exploration, the answer to this inclination of evil is answered with government control. And that's essentially where the novel leaves the reader and just sort of lands that like government is what we need to control this. Now, whether or not the writer agrees with that, isn't very clear. But I think it's important that while we want our readers and our children to explore these ideas, they also need an adult to kind of walk with them and provide discernment through those ideas, because bad ideas can lead to bad actions. And we know that government in any form is not going to save humanity, right? It's the finishing work of the cross and what Christ did for us, and the Holy Spirit doing his work in us that produces the fruits of the Spirit. So we can't do those things on our own. Government's not going to fulfill that. So without God and Christ's finished work on the cross, we're depraved people like those that are seen in this book, and as we see in Romans 3:10-18 pictured. So take that for what you will. I was not a fan of this book. I know that there's people out there who did enjoy it, but for me, it was a no. I would find something better to read.